Good afternoon. I hope I don't know if I will be able to, but I'll try to keep everybody awake. Yeah, I'm from Westphal. I don't know how many people in this room have heard of International Fund for Animal Welfare. We are an international organization. We have offices in 16 countries and projects in about 60 countries. We work around the world to improve the welfare of wild and domestic animals by reducing commercial exploitation of wildlife, protecting animal habitats, and also rescuing animals in crisis and distress. We believe in the intrinsic value of animals and that we have the responsibility to protect them from suffering and depletion. And we care and rescue individual animals as well as seeking solutions, effective solutions that protect animal populations as well as their habitats. And today, I'm going to focus my talk on the commercial exploitation of wildlife that's happening around the world. This, my colleague Celine was in Cameroon. She studied there. She went back to Cameroon in the spring of 2012. And this was the scene she saw. Poachers came into Buba Nojida National Park from on horseback with AK-47s, and they slaughtered hundreds of elephants. And in fact, when they spray elephants, and some of them ran away, and poachers lay in wait because they know elephants will come back to mourn their dead. And Celine, while she was in Cameroon, because she studied there, she has very high connections with government. She was able to reach actually the president of Cameroon and urge him to dispatch military to fight poaching. Oh, sorry. And all that killing was to supply the ivory trade to Asia. This trade is traffickers have many ways to smuggle ivory from Africa, and this route, in fact, this map from UNODC, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, show the main route. But we have seen when interdiction happen in certain routes, traffickers go a different route, and all this killing actually happened before. And some of you may think, isn't there a trade ban? I thought ivory is no longer a problem. People don't want ivory. People don't buy ivory, and you know, poachers don't kill elephants for their ivory anymore. In fact, it was in the 70s and 80s, elephants were killed in large numbers, reduced more than half their population. And that was for the ivory trade to Japan, mainly to Japan. And because of that slaughter in the 70s and 80s, CITES, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Fauna and Flora, which is an international body with today has 180 countries as its party, decided to list all African elephants on Appendix 1 in 1989 after Kenya's president torched Kenya's stockpile of ivory as a demonstration to say enough is enough. And that's why CITES put elephants on Appendix 1 and banned international trade of elephant ivory for commercial purposes. However, elephants, it takes, for an elephant gestation period is 22 months. And for elephant populations to recover, it's a very long time. And after the trade ban, ivory price instantly dropped. There is no more incentive for poaching. So poaching reduced and elephants populations start to recover. IFAR works in Kenya, for instance. There was a park in central Kenya called Meru National Park. And Meru's elephants in the 70s, 80s were completely gone. And so IFAR helped restock elephants back into the park. And just as the elephant populations, especially in East Africa and Central Africa, start to recover, CITES trade ban was undermined by an ivory sale. And this was promoted and lobbied, a strong lobby from some of the southern African countries who say that they have a large ivory stockpile and they need to sell their stockpile in order to generate funding for conservation. And so that in 1997, only 8 years after the trade ban was in place, CITES approved a one-off sale. I put it one-off in a quotation because I don't know why they call it one-off if they keep having it. They call it one-off sale in 97. 50 tons of ivory went to Japan alone, and immediately China felt the impact of this trade. China CITES Management Authority wrote to CITES Secretariat and saying that since 96, China has seized a lot more ivory and confiscated a lot more ivory. And also Chinese consumers were confused, thinking that international trade ban was lifted. In fact, it was only ivory from these 3 countries to Japan. Only this one sale was legal. Despite all the warnings, and CITES in 2007 approved the second one-off sale. And this time, 108 metric tons of ivory was sold to China and Japan from 4 southern African countries: South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, and Zimbabwe. And since 2007, we have seen the poaching just going through the roof. Seizures of ivory around the world is going up and up and up. In 2011, we say this is the worst year for elephants. And then the next year, more seizure exceeded 2011. And this research done by Professor Wittemeyer from CSU, released just last month, confirmed the fear that we have known for a long time. Between 2011 and 2013, 100,000 elephants, African elephants, were killed. And we know that kill rate far exceeds elephant birth rate in Africa now. And at this rate, already forest elephants, 62% of the forest elephants in Central Africa are gone in the last 10 years. And we know at this rate, elephants may become extinct in the next 10 years. And this is what happens when a trade ban, an international trade ban, we know trade bans work. It stigmatizes ivory, stigmatize the consumption of this endangered species. But quite often, policies and laws create these loopholes and compromise the integrity of trade ban. And another example was rhinos. Probably everyone here knows the poaching crisis South Africa is facing on rhinos. In 2000, 6 rhinos were killed in South Africa. In the year 2013, 1,004 rhinos were killed. As of September 21st this year, 784 rhinos were killed this year. Even though rhinos are CITES Appendix 1 species, South Africa allows foreigners to apply to a big game hunting license to basically to kill a rhino and then ship the trophy out of the country under that permit. So this loophole had given criminals another idea. So criminal syndicate had hired Vietnamese and Thai prostitutes to pose as big game hunters to go to, because they have a foreign passport, and to use that passport to apply for a hunting permit so that they can smuggle rhino horn out of the country under that fake permit from poached rhinos. And let's look at the market for ivory and rhino horn in China. Ivory, rhino horn, wood, and bamboo were 4 of the main materials for carving. So ivory and rhino horn carvings in the past was really just, you know, people were fascinated with it, and it was very intricate, detailed carving. But they were only the purview of a privileged few. With the economic boom in China in the past 3 decades, had created this huge consumer base with strong buying power. And legal trade, basically, all of a sudden, previously, people had no idea, nobody even want ivory or rhino horn carving. And all of a sudden, they start to see people, friends and family, people have it. And their bosses, if you buy one to give your boss, and maybe you can court favor from officials. And these are, you know, combined with the social interest to define status. If I have it, it shows, you know, I'm in a powerful position to show off, I have face. And this is the giving rise to the consumption of a lot of luxury products, and including ivory and rhino horn carvings. The sale that the legal ivory coming into China, when CITES banned elephant ivory, international trade for ivory for commercial purposes in '89, it coincided with a period in China. China was shifting from a state economy to private economy. So a lot of these ivory carving factories, you know, the master carvers saw that there is no more hope of getting in new ivory. And at the time, China still had a lot of ivory stockpile that's before CITES was set up. So it's called pre-convention ivory, which is they can use domestically in China. And a lot of these masters decided to, you know, just not take in apprentices anymore. And the production was shrinking down. And with the new ivory coming into China, and all of a sudden, a lot of over 100 operations were approved by government to carve ivory and sell ivory products. And a lot of the consumers, as I said, all of a sudden saw that everybody around them buying ivory. And they thought they saw stores selling ivory. A lot of them took availability for legality. And also, in the past, when ivory carving, you probably have all seen these large, elaborate, carved, the whole tusk, a scenery carved into it. In fact, there is one at the UN General Assembly. There was a ivory carving from China given to the UN. And that carving took something like 12 masters, 6 years. You know, 12 masters and 90 other carvers, 6 years to carve that one carving. But after the new ivory coming into China since 2007, a lot of the appreciation shifted from these large carved masterpieces to little trinkets. And there is no artistic value, no collecting value in these little trinkets like this picture shows, not anymore. And also, there is consumer ignorance about ivory. For many years, we've been monitoring ivory markets since 2000, and we have been supplying information to CITES, urging CITES to not approve China to become an ivory trading partner. But by 2007, we felt that we couldn't stop it. We know the ivory, CITES has approved it. It's coming into China, so we decided to see what are consumers' misconceptions. And it was astonishing because it was astonishing to me too. As a Chinese, I didn't know so many people didn't know. 70% of the Chinese do not know ivory comes from dead elephants. Because in Chinese, ivory is elephant teeth. And as teeth, people think human teeth can fall off and people don't die. And that misconception, and that same survey found that 82% of the people say if they had known, they will not consume ivory. And so in 2011, this was a survey we did in 2011. China have to put in place an ivory registration and certification system in order to get CITES approval for them to trade ivory. So under this system, government approved 37 ivory carving factories and 136 ivory retail outlets. So every ivory operation, anybody selling ivory have to have a license. And also, every piece of ivory sold on the market have to come with an ID card, have to be sold with an ID card linked with this piece of ivory. So what we have found, we visited 158 operations selling ivory, and 101 of them did not have a license. And in a shopping mall just outside of Beijing, we saw 22 shops, and only one had a government-issued license. And also, among those operations with a license, we found a majority of them are also operating illegal, conducting illegal operation by withholding that ID card. If a consumer wants to buy an ivory and the seller would say, you can buy this ivory without the ID card, you can get it cheaper, you get a discount. So that ID card can go with another piece of ivory, with the ivory that comes from poached elephants. And since our survey has been looking at ivory price in Chinese currency, every time we do it, we look at currency, what we have seen is between 2006 and 2012, ivory price in Chinese currency, in Chinese market, had tripled. And during that same time, Chinese currency had gained value against the US dollar. So what that means is any consumer, Chinese consumer who goes overseas where ivory can be sourced, his money, he has to convert his Chinese money into US dollars, and his Chinese money can go so much further. He has much stronger buying power with that Chinese currency. And then if he can smuggle that ivory back into China, as we have seen on the market, it was very easy to sell that ivory, then that profit margin is huge. And one ivory carving factory that we visited, the manager told us that government-issued legal ivory lasts me 1 month of the year. So the other 11 months, he had to use illegal ivory. And that represents 91% for this one carving factory. And also, rhino horn, I need to step back a little bit about rhino horn. Rhino horn and tiger bone, for instance, they are both ingredients in traditional Chinese medicine. But both tigers and rhinos are CITES Appendix 1 species. So under pressure from CITES, China China State Council in 1993 banned the trade of rhino horn and tiger bone in traditional medicine. Since the ban, the government had removed these two ingredients that used in TCM from the TCM pharmacopoeia, removed it from TCM college curriculum, and they have found alternatives, herbal alternatives to replace, or synthetic, to replace these two ingredients. And also, TCM practitioners in China realize that continued use of these two ingredients is going to hinder TCM globalization. So they have willingly moved away from using rhino horn and tiger bone in traditional medicine. But our survey shows that in recent years, the Chinese demand for rhino horn and is not for TCM anymore. It is for carvings. It's really as an investment. They see this species is going to be, becoming fewer and fewer, and people are banking on extinction. And this demand is also hugely driven by wealth, no longer driven by health anymore. And ivory, of course, was never used in TCM, but as these prices show, those highlighted ones I felt particularly telling. The sales volume in 1 year from 2010 to 2011 was 170% increase. And every piece, an average price for an rhino horn carving was $117,000. If you remember, in a few years ago, quite a few rhino horn pieces, whole rhino horn, were stolen from museums in Europe. And a lot of the law enforcement officers in Europe thought that rhino horn is being shipped to China to be ground up as medicine. And this information, we're using this information to tell them that, no, it's not. It's coming here because of the carving. It's totally wealth-driven. And of course, technology has making mass killing, mass production, and also getting the products onto the market so much easier and quicker. China today has 618 million people online. And internet, of course, global internet creates this global marketplace that's open 24/7, 365. International access, anonymity, immediacy, you can deal online, trade offline, and all of this without any regulation to control. And with the legal market and mixed with illegal market existing in parallel, it creates this gray market. Actually, the gray market really is the wildlife criminal's dream come true, because most consumers are law-abiding, and law-abiding consumers are not going to get into a black market trying to buy something that has a stigma attached. But instead, when there is a gray market, people, 99% of the people, if they don't know, they can't tell. And in fact, even law enforcement officers that we work with in China complain that once ivory is onto the market, they're not able to tell if it's legal or illegal. And the lack of enforcement or low penalties, and particularly corruption and lack of governance on the entire trade chain from source to transit to market countries, is giving this crime, wildlife crime, it's a high profit, low risk crime. And in fact, because of this characteristic, wildlife crime is high profit, low risk. It's attracting a lot of criminal groups. Previously, they were engaged in other higher risk crime. And now they engage in wildlife crime, but the proceeds from wildlife crime can go back fund other violent crime and organizations. So what do we do about this? And many people, and including people who are promoting the trade of ivory, trying to, trying to get legal ivory trade approved by CITES, they're saying, accusing, China, yeah, the demand in China is really huge and you need to do something about that demand. But from what I just explained, we do need to reduce demand, but what's really need to be reduced is not just demand, it's supply too. It's the trade, the entire trade need to be reduced. And so this is, we have been implementing a behavior change communications strategy in China to reduce both supply of ivory and also the demand. By reducing supply is to make ivory and many other endangered species, the trade of these endangered species, make marketplaces unavailable for the trade of their parts and derivatives. And the private sector we started working with since 2005 is the online industry. We realized that China's online population is growing so fast with the gray market created by the legal trade. We have to get online companies to work with us. And Alibaba, I think everybody in this room today know about Alibaba. And in fact, Alibaba's subsidiary, the main C2C website, trading website in China, which owns 84% of China's market share, is called Taobao. And Taobao in Chinese means treasure hunt. And Taobao website, since 2008, had banned elephant ivory from websites. And not only banned elephant ivory, Taobao banned rhino horn, bear bile, tiger bone, tiger pelts, turtle shell, pangolin scale, shark fin. And led by Taobao, many other websites, including some of the collection websites and search engines, have also taken a zero tolerance policy against online wildlife trade. Back in 2007, we were monitoring one website. Today, we monitor 21 because all of them have taken a very strong policy. But once elephant ivory, the word ivory is banned listed in prohibited from trade list, people come up with other names for ivory. Today in China, there are over 40 different names for elephant ivory to be sold online or offline. And so we have to monitor these websites and find these new names that come up and provide them to websites in order to create this filter to prohibit them from sale. And we also provide information to law enforcement agencies to crack down. And all these efforts working together is putting a stigma on wildlife consumption to the general consumers. And this chart, we monitor online wildlife trade every 2 months. And this chart shows from March 2012 to July this year, we have been able to show a sustained online reduction of wildlife trade. And the end number, that's 22,000, for instance, this includes a lot of other wildlife products. But this chart, the end number is 17,000, and this is for ivory. You can see majority of the sales that we have found that still going on online is for ivory trade. In December 2011, we saw, because we've been monitoring and we have seen the increase in auction, the endangered species used in auction. Okay. So in 2011 December, we found an auction house was going to sell off 400 bottles of Tiger Bone wine in an auction in a hotel right next door from our office. So we went over during the preview just to take a look and confirm. Indeed, not only 400 bottles of Tiger Bone wine, they were going to sell off rhino horn carvings and ivory carvings. So we reported this to law enforcement in China, and they halted this auction. They stopped the auction, and then after they stopped the auction, they issued a notice to all of the auction houses across country in mainland China, it does not include Hong Kong, urging them to remove tiger bone, rhino horn, and ivory from auction, reminding them that China's State Council has a trade ban of tiger bone and rhino horn particularly. And so immediately we start seeing auctions being canceled and these products taken off. So at the end of 2012, we found that in that 1 year, China's auction overall sales decreased by 40 to 50%. And that represents 322 million US dollars worth of endangered species did not get sold in the year 2012. And also, IFA has been working with governments around the world to destroy confiscated ivory stockpiles, because these are confiscated contraband, and leaving them or storing them, it will always tempt, there will always be people, corrupt officials, who want to get their hands on that ivory and put it back into the market. Instead, if it's destroyed, it sends a strong message to consumers to stigmatize ivory. And so when just last November, here in Denver, when US government crushed 6 tons of ivory, in January, those pictures, in January this year in China, Chinese government crushed 6.1 ton of ivory. 6.1, just uphill by 100 kilos. And so, as I said, that was reducing demand, but we also need to reduce supply, we also need to reduce demand. And our survey found that 70% of people don't know. So this is our campaign message. It's a dialogue between a baby and elephant and the mother. Baby is telling the mom, Mom, I have teeth. And the mom is not answering. And baby asking, Mom, aren't you happy? I have teeth. And then we explain, babies having teeth should be a joyous occasion for the mother, but what does it mean for elephant families? Because of our unnecessary want of ivory, hundreds and thousands are killed. If we don't buy, they don't die. Say no to elephant ivory. And immediately after we developed this ad, we sent it to ad agencies for testing. And the response was overwhelming. A Chinese, it's actually a global company called JCDecaux, which owns probably the world's majority advertising space everywhere in Metropolis. And their Chinese company came to us and said, we want to help you put this message across the country. And they did. It was in airports, in subways, on trains, in buses, in magazines, on phone cards. And in fact, China's Education Bureau saw the message without telling us. They took it and put it into college entrance exam as a language test. And that subsequently reached 9 million college applicants. And so after 5 years of this ad campaign going on in China, we decided to test it last year. And we found that this ad message had penetrated urban Chinese population by 75%. And it has also reduced the propensity of the group most likely to purchase ivory from 54% to 26%. And even among past ivory buyers, those that say they may buy reduced from 18% to 8%, and also those past non-buyers of ivory further, confirm their determination not to purchase ivory. And this is another event that we heard from African law enforcement agencies that majority, over 90% of the people caught with ivory trying to smuggle out of Africa are Chinese nationals. And so in 2009, we started a initiative with Kenya Embassy in Beijing to distribute this, we call it passport holder. You can put your passport in here, but it's a brochure to every Chinese visa applicant to educate them about going to Africa and what need to be done, not to do in Africa. Other than pulling on people's emotions, we need to also remind them of legal ramifications. And of course, China has this gray market. So what we can do is the words in the bracelet, ivory bracelet, is asking, having status, and the word in the handcuff is having sentence. And these two words, it's a play of words because these two characters, two phrases, sound exactly the same. 有形, 有形. But except the tone is different. And we tell people there could be legal ramification for consuming ivory. And also, we want to pull on people's giving them a sense of moral obligation. Chinese characters are pictograms. So all of the Chinese characters are, especially those with physical things, they resemble that. So the word for elephant, this word for elephant, there should be another stroke there, which represents its two tusks. And the word for tiger, in the middle, there should be its bone, a tiger bone, the word for bone. And the word for bear, it should have its gallbladder also in the word, but we took those all out. We also took out the word, this is the word for people, like two legs walking, and we took out half of a person from the word for people, and we asked if we mutilate animals like this, like the way we do, aren't we just beings without humanity? And these are all ads we are telling to consumers. So the next stage of our campaign is using key opinion leaders, especially in the social media environment, to help us spread the message. These are the key opinion leaders. They have large influences. Some of the pop star, on the left-hand side, her fan base is it is actually in the 200 million and over. And they will help us influence fans, peers, families, and friends. And also some of these KOLs hold government positions. They will help us put in proposals to government legislative body, urging China to take a stronger stand against banning ivory and banning tiger trade. Also, these KOLs help us mainstream, many of them are artists, help us mainstream our message, conservation message. These two are two campaigns. Actually, it happened this past January during Chinese New Year. They are not initiated by NGOs. They were initiated by China's government media. The upper hand with the shark fin is People's Daily. This is initiated by China Central Television. And these two, China's media, government-controlled media, is really it's a weather vane of government policy. And so having these government media taking this position give us tremendous hope that the government is listening to about this issue. And also, in terms of government action, if there is a country in the world where government wants to do something, they can do it instantly and they can change it instantly. For instance, China's new president, Xi Jinping, when he came into power, he started a government austerity campaign, banning civil servants from these lavish banquets with shark fin, consuming shark fin. And that austerity campaign had reduced shark fin trade in the region by 75% in the last year and a half. And the sentiment expressed by the public also support government to ban ivory trade. This was from our survey. We asked people, what would make you not buy ivory in the future? The answer that got the most points, 60% say make it illegal to buy in all circumstances. National Geographic did survey, has similar finding. Wild survey found 94% of the Chinese public support government to ban ivory trade completely. So this is really giving us hope. So just summary, a few of the things if we need to protect all these endangered species, we need to have strong policies and eliminate markets. Eliminate markets, period. And also, we need to, these trade bans not only reduce the trade when you have seen when government action can reduce trade, but they also send a strong message to consumers to stigmatize ivory consumption. And also, you don't have to be in China to influence change. Influence US government, the march tomorrow, trying to get US government to take a leadership in conservation is so important because Chinese government is watching US government very closely, like the ivory destruction you have seen. And so let's try to get these government into a friendly competition. Let's see who is going to be the conservation leader. And then in terms of working in China, you know, we need to, instead of, like us, international groups or condemnation against this consumption, instead of condemning it from outside, we need to work from within and build a conservation constituency within China to promote change. Beware of differences. There are cultural, social, political differences, but we have more commonalities to work with. Thank you very much.